are listening to Rafia Hussain on your very own show, Our Children, Our Future. I hope you are all well and just winding down in terms of the academic year. We are coming towards the end of the academic year and heading towards the summer holidays. Well, what summer holidays, what type of summer holidays these shall be, only time will tell. But things are getting back to some normality. Restrictions have been lifted, as we know. Children have been going into school. Well, year 11s and year 13 or year 12 students, and obviously key workers and children of key workers. They've not had a break, obviously. So we've had some changes. And today I have got Brother Sayyid Salad on the show, and he has kindly volunteered to come on again at very short notice. So I am grateful to him for that. And we are just going to be talking a little bit about the changes that have taken place, really. So just giving you a little bit more information about some of the changes and just our thoughts, because as you are aware, Brother Salad is also a teacher himself, so he's an academic, and just sharing some ideas with you on what his thoughts are about the changes and how things are going. So obviously you can listen into that. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. Sophia. Alhamdulillah, shukran, everything's fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on at such a short notice. I know you've had a bit of a hectic day today, haven't you?
Yeah, no, everything's fine. So how's the radio show been going on?
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, it's been okay. Working from home, I think that's going to become the norm, really, for a lot of people, isn't it? Like my show, I've been obviously doing it at the comfort of my own bedroom, and many other companies as well. How do you think things are going there?
I was watching the news and they were mentioning how a lot of people are actually contemplating whether to stay in the city now because they can actually afford to relocate outside the city because a lot of their work now can be done at home. So that's one aspect of realization there.
Definitely. I think a lot of companies have said that they are considering on making this a sort of like a permanent option. But do you think a lot of people are going to lose their jobs if that happens? Would they have less people doing the same job, I suppose?
I mean, obviously with this current situation, the job losses are going to be inevitable. But I think one of the things that people have probably realized that there's the amount of technology out there now. You don't need to now depend on physically going into work because the technology exists and you can actually do it at home or anywhere for that matter.
Definitely. I think it's got its own challenges, hasn't it? I know as a teacher, I found schooling from home, remote teaching, I found that quite difficult really with them. But I suppose maybe because I've got 3 young ones in the background screaming, so it's not been that easy. So I suppose it's got some challenges, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're always going to have certain environments like teaching, for example, where it's necessary for you to have contact with pupils. Any caring environment would evolve, and that'd be very difficult for you to always be learning online. I know, for example, speaking to a few people, they've actually kind of considered it to be very isolating and not getting that experience of actually being amongst other people, looking forward to speaking to their friends, and that learning aspect where you're there is going to be impossible to replace through technology.
Definitely. Going on that note, how do you think, what have you thought about this whole thing? Because we've had children off school for near enough 6 months now, by the time they get back into the classroom full time. What do you think about the whole situation? Do you think it's really disadvantaged them in many ways in terms of their learning? Because I know there's been remote learning taking place online and teachers have been setting work and stuff. Do you think that effectively compensates for the all the time they've missed?
I think it's going to vary from individual household really, because it's very difficult to actually maintain, especially by parents. So again, if parents are in communication and dialogue with the children and they emphasize the importance, then the kids would, actually sit down and do regular work every day. Whereas other children may just pick and choose when they feel like it. So it's quite staggered. On that in itself, then it's very difficult to know which pupils have actually made progress and are learning and which ones have not really done much. So it's going to be very difficult. And this is why I think at some point it's very important for everybody to come back into school so the teachers can then, assess where everybody is on a learning curve and try to, make up for the gap. Certainly, there's a lot in the news regarding that, especially in areas of poverty where certain households may not have a particular electrical device to access the home, or they may have 3, 4, 5 children, and it's difficult to take turns to do the homework. So again, there's that element of accessibility as well.
Definitely. So what are your thoughts, in terms of the recent government plans of all children back into the classroom full-time, and they've talked about this system of having bubbles within the school system. So I'm sure you're already aware of this, but having year bubbles, so where each year group is kept in a bubble. So they might have a designated area within the school where they have to stay. Do you think that's going to work?
It looks good on paper, and a lot of these things are obviously always done without putting anything into practice first. It's going to be very difficult because, not only placing year groups in bubbles, but also in classrooms in bubbles. So they're talking about, around 15 pupils per member of staff. And then, like you said, within the year group, separated from another year group. It's going to be difficult because managing all that accessibility to certain, like, for example, you're trying to manage pupils to go into lunchtime or break within a pocket of time so that it doesn't overlap with another group, another class, another year. It makes it difficult. And how do you isolate certain children who are friends with other children, perhaps in another year group? So they may be seeing each other before they come into school, and then they're being separated, and they'll get back together again, perhaps end of the day. So, sometimes we think practically it is very difficult to put in place. I can understand the emphasis that the government is making that, education is relevant, and children are obviously missing out on that. But I think if you speak to parents, the number one concern is actually the son and daughter safety, and that's paramount compared to the education. So, you need to kind of, at that moment in time, see what's more important to you. And I think a lot of the parents probably would agree with me by saying that they need that bit more assurance that the schools are actually safe enough for their child to go in, rather than them, catching the virus and they're bringing it home, and then perhaps at home there's more vulnerable people to catch it as well. So it's going to be difficult. Give a typical example that you've got 15 people in a classroom and you've got a teacher. All it takes is one person to actually, show symptoms, and therefore the whole bubble is sent home, and you have to quarantine yourself for 14 days. So, and that's going to be extremely difficult because each time if that happens and suddenly bubbles are suddenly being sent home for 17 days, they're missing education straight away by the time we realize then who actually has it and who hasn't.
Definitely. And I think this idea of having small classes, I don't think that's going to be the case, in all honesty. because if all children are going back, I think the class sizes are going to be the normal sizes, other than the students that probably won't be attending because they're shielding, or somebody in their family is shielding. Having small class sizes logistically would not work in a school unless they have more sort of space, more capacity. So I think it's going to be full class sizes, really, with
and more members of staff as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we have got some issues there, I think, that they will have to obviously consider. And I suppose it's going to be difficult for the children that are shielding, isn't it? And maybe families that are shielding. So those children are still going to be missing out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, recently they were mentioning, and obviously they've said that households will get fined, so parents will get fined if they don't send their children. And that, again, is a push for everybody to send their children into school so that this plan actually works. But I know for certain that individual schools have said that they perhaps will not be as strict, or if the parent might turn out and say, well, look, it's easier for me to pay the fine, but at least I know my child is safe at this moment in time. So we don't know. I mean, we've got the whole of summer to kind of think it through. I certainly know that when it was open in June and not many pupils actually attended, there would be, a cluster of pupils turning up, and certainly many were kept home. And the parents' response was that, we'll wait until September when we, can be a little bit more confident in that. So, again, it's really down to how confident everybody feels and how positive the government's message is. And between you and me, it seems to be changing day in, day out. Half the time you feel that, what they're saying is contradicting what they said a week ago. So, half the time they don't know what they're saying.
Definitely. What do you think of this military approach of you must send your child to school or you're going to be fined? Because that's the bottom line that the government has taken at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I personally disagree with the fact that forcing and making parents, I mean, there's an element of care here. You need to understand how individual parent feels regarding their child. Now, a lot of the parents will send their children once they feel that, after my friend down the street is sending her child for like a week now and nothing's happened, so perhaps I will send. So it's really, I think, the emphasis should have been on giving the option for the parents to make their mind up. So then again, they could be sending their child in a staggered way, so the schools are overwhelmed to get everybody in at the same time, because that would actually help. Because you're putting something in practice and it needs to be done in short groups. I'm not forcing everybody to send all your children in at the same time, or suddenly having, in larger sectors like 1,400 pupils, and how are you going to manage that? 15 per staff per class as a bubble.
Definitely. I think the way things are at the moment, we probably see a lot of school closures, or within year group closures, because I think that's what they've said, haven't they? That if a particular year group, if somebody's infected with the virus, then they will just send that year group home as opposed to the whole school.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of the bubble, because within that bubble is that you're limiting contact from anybody else. So within that bubble, if somebody shows symptoms, then the whole of that bubble is sent home. That member of staff and those 15 pupils would have to then self-isolate for 14 days. And that's what they're trying to do. And if it was a whole year group where they had perhaps an assembly, so then the whole year group would be sent home then if it took one person with the symptoms. So, like I said, practically difficult. And, I mean, God forbid, if there is a scenario where somebody or more than one bubble suddenly started to show these symptoms and was sent home, and this this continuously happened in many other schools, then I'm sure the government would have to think twice again, because it's almost you're creating another spike within the education system. So yeah, you're right. The schools would have to close down again.
Definitely.
I know in China, definitely when they first started, staggered their pupils in there and created the kind of bubble like that. But then they realised that the percentage of coronavirus incidents suddenly started to increase, so they closed the school down again. So that in itself, even though it's a trial thing, it's difficult to maintain. And coming on the other aspect of things, I mean, this PPE as well, that we keep mentioning, to try and wear a mask or keep gloves on, that changes from school to school. I mean, especially schools where there's special needs, SEND.
Exactly.
That is absolutely difficult for pupils to ensure that distance, keeping away from each other. And I know some schools are not going to be as restricted because it will be difficult to enforce.
Definitely. I think it's probably going to have a lot more challenges for, like you said, SEN children in particular. Like, for example, if a child has got hearing impairment, they need to see the teacher. They need to see the lips move, don't they?
Yeah.
So, I don't know how PPE is going to work there. Okay, so in terms of the summer holidays and stuff, what advice do you think we could give to our parents that are listening in terms of work? Because I know it's not been the same, but I think a lot of families have kept the momentum going, even if it's little and often, in terms of schoolwork. Do you think they should keep up with the routine during summer, or maybe just relax, forget about everything and just take a little bit of a break?
No, I think what you said earlier is a far better option of continuously doing what they have been doing, where it's better to do small amounts regularly than to miss out, because you can quite easily get into a routine where you're not doing much and then you don't want to do much. So it's important for pupils to be learning. And certainly at some point you will be going back into school, and you don't want to be behind your peers if they have been educating at home, because then you'll find things far more difficult within the classroom environment. So by all means, teachers are sending homework, and there are no absolute deadlines. They're encouraging you to do as much as you can. So even if you fall behind deadlines, as long as you're emailing the teachers and saying you're doing the best you can, and overall I think teachers are happy with that, as long as the pupils are doing small amounts regularly.
Definitely. Okay, how have you found the whole situation with homeschooling? Because I know you have two children that are still at school. So how have you managed? Have you found it challenging, or was it? How have they found it as well?
It's going to be challenging because, perhaps not as much for us because we're in that teaching environment, so we're used to it, whether we're going to teach 35 children in the classroom or whether we teach our own. But I think it's probably difficult for the majority of parents who are not used to having a child throughout the day consistently. I think often they have this fear when the holiday comes around that they seem to be so demanding, but now they're constantly off. I think they probably find it a little bit more challenging than perhaps you and I are, because they're used to having people in that sense of the word. But coming back to like I said, you just try and go with how things are, and give them some work, and then not overdoing it, and the majority of the day get them to do other creative things, and not just stay sat down watching TV, if you know what I mean.
Definitely. What sort of creative things have you been doing then?
Well, I know it's amazing how even though you're at home, but you manage to find so many things to do that you're really busy. If the weather's good, you're out in the garden trying to do something. At home, you can, try and get things tidied up that you wanted to do, or certain things fixed that you probably left. On top of that, I mean, I was still going in a couple of days a week, and if any pupils came up to the school, then we would teach them, and if not, we would create packs for them, so they could be then sent to those children. So, and then other than that, the rest of the day, just trying to find myself different things to do, not making sure, I'm sat at home and not doing anything. So it's amazing you have got things to do. You can stay busy.
Definitely. It's just a different kind of a day, isn't it? Not like school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not like
school. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming on air today. I'm sure everybody has really appreciated your input in terms of, what things are going to look like in September. And like you said, things are changing every day. We've still got 6+ weeks, really. And we just don't really know how things are going to plan out in September. So I think maybe just wait and watch approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think there will be a lot more information given to us just before September, so we'll get to find out then.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, brother, for coming on air today. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, you was listening to Rafia Hussain on your very own show, Our Children, Our Future, Link FM 96.7. Obviously, if you're listening now, then you're listening, but our show is online as well. It's recorded, so if you don't get a chance to listen at any point, then you could always log on to Facebook and listen there. I will, inshallah, see you again next week. Keep me in your du'as. Allah Hafiz. Bye.
मैं निकला वो टैक्सी लेके वो रास्ते पर